Pack your bags. That is what I told my children the night my parents pushed them into a damp basement filled with mold. It was the exact moment when I stopped being the obedient daughter and became the mother who refused to let her kids be treated as less than human. But how did we get there? Before I tell you, if stories like this hit you hard, subscribe to our channel for more real-life drama. And tell me in the comments, would you walk away from family if they disrespected your children? Now, let me take you back. My name is Jessica Miller. I am 34 years old and I live in Dallas, Texas. I am a pediatric nurse. My shifts are long, sometimes 12 hours, sometimes overnight, but I love my job because I love kids. I also have 2 children of my own, Liam and Chloe. They are 9-year-old twins. Liam is creative, always drawing, building, and imagining. He has asthma, which means I am always careful about his health. Chloe is my firecracker, outspoken, confident, and the first to defend anyone who is being treated unfairly. For 10 years, they were the only grandchildren in our family. They were loved, or at least, I thought they were. 2 years ago, my marriage ended after 12 years. My ex-husband, Daniel, is a software engineer. He made most of the money while I worked part-time and took care of the twins. The divorce was brutal, emotionally and financially. I walked away with joint custody, very little alimony, and a sudden need to support myself and my kids full-time. My parents, Carol and Robert, offered their home. "Just until you get back on your feet," my father said, patting my shoulder like he was doing me the biggest favor in the world. I agreed because I had no choice. Dallas rent was sky high. At first, it worked. They gave Liam and Chloe the old office as their room. I took the guest room. I contributed to groceries, cooked dinner, and respected their rules. My plan was clear. Save enough for a deposit and rent our own place within a year. But there was always an invisible weight in that house. My younger brother, Brian. Brian was the golden child, always had been. He dropped out of college, yet my parents funded his tech startup. By 31, he was making over $150,000 a year. Me, the responsible one, the rule follower, the nurse who worked her way through school, was always the one expected to sacrifice. The favoritism was so ingrained I barely noticed it anymore. Until Brian and his wife Kelly had their first baby, Mason, the first grandson. That is when everything changed. My parents turned their dining room into a nursery, even though Brian and Kelly lived across town in a 4-bedroom house. They bought the most expensive baby gear. They cancelled plans with my kids if Brian needed help. My mother said, "Your brother needs more support. He is new to parenting." The irony was almost laughable. I had been a single mom for 2 years. The favoritism was subtle at first. Christmas gifts that were clearly more expensive for Mason. Comments about how Mason looked just like Brian as a baby. Meanwhile, Liam and Chloe were said to look like their father, not me. These little things piled up. I tried to stay calm. I tried to explain to my children that babies need attention. I tried to remind them this was only temporary, but deep down, I knew the storm was building, and when it hit, it would break something inside me forever. At first, I told myself it was just excitement over the new baby. Liam and Chloe had been the only grandchildren for 9 years. Maybe this was just a phase. But it was not a phase. It was the beginning of something ugly. My parents acted like Mason was royalty. They bragged about him to neighbors. They framed his baby pictures in the living room. And quietly, my children started to disappear from the spotlight. I noticed it most at Christmas. Liam unwrapped a set of pencils and a sketchbook. Chloe got a pair of sneakers that were on sale. Then Mason opened a shiny new playhouse that cost more than my monthly grocery bill. Everyone clapped and cheered while my kids looked at their gifts in silence. That moment broke my heart. Still, I kept telling myself to be patient, save money, get through the year, move out. But the favoritism only grew worse. One afternoon, Liam came running inside with a ribbon from school. He had won 2nd place in the district art fair. He held it out with pride. "Grandma, look what I got." Without even glancing at it, she waved him away. "Not now, Liam. I am helping Kelly pick curtains." His smile fell in an instant. I wanted to scream, but instead I swallowed my words. That night, Liam tucked the ribbon inside his sketchbook. I saw him do it, and I thought, this boy deserves the world. He deserves grandparents who cheer for him, not grandparents who make him feel invisible. Chloe noticed it too. She was bold enough to call it out. When Mason threw his food on the floor during dinner and everyone laughed, Chloe asked me quietly, "How come he can do that? But if I ask for a sandwich, Grandma says I am rude. What could I say to that?" She was right. The double standard was brutal. Even small details cut deep. My kids' drawings were taken off the fridge to make room for Mason's daycare schedule. Their toys were boxed up because they looked messy. The TV was tuned to Kelly's shows. Every corner of the house screamed that Mason mattered more. And I kept asking myself, how long could I keep my kids in a place where they were treated like intruders? I worked 12-hour shifts at the hospital. When I came home, I found Chloe crying on the back porch. She had been jump roping outside. Grandma told her to stop because it was too loud, even though Mason was wide awake in the living room. Chloe looked up at me and whispered, "Mom, I do not think Grandma likes me anymore." I hugged her tight, but inside I was crumbling. It is one thing for me to feel unwanted. It is another for my children to feel it. And the truth is, they felt it every single day. I tried to hold everything together. Cooking, cleaning, contributing to bills, smiling through gritted teeth. But cracks were forming, and they were spreading fast, and I had no idea that a family dinner in September would push me right to the edge. Because that night, my brother dropped a bomb that changed everything. That night we all sat around the dinner table. The air was heavy, but nobody said it out loud. My mom had cooked Brian's favorite meal. Mashed potatoes, grilled steak, apple pie. Nothing on the table was food my kids liked. Liam poked at his plate. Chloe drank water, and then Brian cleared his throat with a grin. "We have some news," he announced. Kelly bounced Mason on her lap, smiling like she had already won something. My parents leaned in, eyes glowing with pride. "We finally started the renovation," Brian said. "The house will be torn apart for a few months, maybe longer. So, we need a place to stay." My mother clapped her hands together. "You will stay here, of course. We have plenty of room." My stomach dropped. I looked at her, then at my father, waiting for someone to mention us. Me, Liam, Chloe. But nobody did. I forced myself to speak. "Actually, it's already tight with the 5 of us here." Adding 3 more. My mother shot me a sharp look. "Family helps family, Jessica. It's only temporary. Only temporary." That phrase echoed in my head. That was exactly what they had said to me 2 years earlier. And now here we were, still living under their roof, treated like guests who overstayed their welcome. But Brian and Kelly were welcomed like honored royalty. The following weekend, they moved in. My father carried their suitcases inside with a smile. My mother cleared out closets for Kelly's clothes. Nobody had ever done that for me. I had lived out of suitcases for months before buying a cheap dresser myself. The house shifted overnight. Suddenly, Liam and Chloe were told to keep their voices down all the time because Mason was napping. Their toys were boxed up and shoved aside. The living room TV played Kelly's shows from morning until night. Even the backyard was off limits. When Chloe tried to jump rope, Grandma told her she was disturbing Kelly. But Mason's stroller, Mason's toys, Mason's high chair, those could stay wherever they landed. One evening, Liam came home bursting with excitement. His artwork had been chosen to represent his school at a district exhibition. He showed the paper to my mom. "Not now, Liam," she said without looking. "I am helping Kelly choose curtains. I saw the light dim in my son's eyes. That was the moment something inside me cracked. I was trying so hard to keep the peace, to remind myself that this was temporary. But how temporary can it be when your kids are treated like intruders in their own home?" That night, I tried to talk to my parents. "I feel like Liam and Chloe are being pushed aside." I said carefully, "They're starting to feel invisible." My father frowned. "They're just being sensitive. Babies need more attention. Mason is not even here most of the day." "That's not true," I said. He goes to daycare while Liam and Chloe are in school. They're not asking for attention during those hours. My mother sighed. You always were jealous of your brother, Jessica. I thought you would grow out of that. Her words cut deeper than a knife. Jealous. That was how she explained away years of favoritism, as if I was a bitter child, not a mother fighting for her kids. And in that moment, I realized something. This was not just unfair. It was dangerous. Because if I kept quiet, if I stayed passive, my children would grow up believing they were worth less than Mason, and I could not let that happen. But I had no idea the worst was still coming. It happened on a Tuesday. I had just finished a brutal 12-hour shift at the hospital. When I finally checked my phone during my break, my heart sank. I had 10 missed messages from Liam and Chloe. Mom, Grandpa and Uncle Brian are moving our stuff. Grandma says we have to live in the basement. Mom, it is cold and gross down here. There are spiders. I dropped my sandwich. I grabbed my bag and begged my supervisor to let me leave early. By the time I got to the house, my kids were on the couch with red eyes. They had been crying for hours. My mother sat in the kitchen sipping tea with Kelly, calm as if nothing happened. My father and Brian had vanished. I looked at my kids. Their backpacks were half open. Their clothes were wrinkled from being dragged downstairs. Liam whispered, Grandpa said we do not deserve the good rooms anymore. My stomach twisted. I marched into the kitchen. What is going on? I demanded. Kelly spoke first. We needed more space upstairs. Mason needs a nursery, and I work from home now. It makes sense. I stared at her. You decided to move my children into a damp basement without asking me. My mother finally looked at me. It is logical, Jessica. The children are older. They can adapt. Mason is here all day. He deserves the best rooms. Her words echoed in my head. He deserves the best rooms. So by that logic, my children deserved less. I pointed out the mold, the cold, the fact that Liam has asthma. My father waved his hand. Kids are resilient, Jessica. You should just be grateful you even have a place here at all. That sentence broke something inside me. For years, I had swallowed the unfairness. I had told myself to be patient, but now they had crossed a line. They had put my children in danger. I turned to Liam and Chloe, who were watching me with wide eyes. I smiled at them, even though my heart was pounding. Pack your bags. They froze. Chloe whispered, Are we really leaving? Yes. Right now. My father scoffed. Stop being dramatic, Jessica. Nobody asked you to leave. I shook my head. No, Dad. You just made it very clear where we stand in this family, and my kids deserve better. My mother gasped. You cannot be serious. This is just a bedroom arrangement. You are blowing it out of proportion. I turned to Kelly. Would you call it that if someone shoved Mason into a moldy basement without asking you first? She had no answer. For once, the room was silent. I looked at Liam and Chloe again. Go upstairs. Grab your favorite things. We will come back for the rest later. They ran upstairs. When they returned, Chloe clutched her clarinet. Liam held his sketchbook and his stuffed dragon. Their faces were scared, but also a little hopeful. I knew what I had to do. I was leaving that night, and nothing, not my parents' anger, not Brian's smirk, not guilt or manipulation, was going to stop me. But the real shock came when I revealed a secret I had been keeping from them for weeks. The room went silent when I said it. Pack your bags. My father's face turned red. My mother's eyes filled with shock. Kelly clutched Mason tighter like I was the crazy one. Brian smirked as if he was sure I had nowhere to go. That was the moment I decided to tell them the truth. You think I am trapped here, I said slowly. You think I have no options. But you are wrong. My mother blinked. What are you talking about, Jessica? I looked at my kids first, then I turned back to my parents. I have been saving every extra penny since the day I moved in here. Every double shift. Every night I came home too tired to stand. I was building a way out. Their expressions shifted. Brian laughed. Sure you were. You barely make anything. Where would you even go? I smiled for the first time that night. 3 weeks ago, I signed a lease on a house in Arlington. It is small. It is nothing fancy. But it is ours. And we are moving in. The silence that followed was delicious. Brian's smirk vanished. Kelly's mouth dropped open. My father sputtered. You were planning this behind our backs. After everything we have done for you. I felt calm, almost eerily calm. Yes, because I knew this day would come. I knew one day you would cross a line I could never forgive. And tonight was that night. Liam and Chloe looked at me with wide eyes. Chloe whispered, We really have our own house. I nodded. Yes, baby. We do. For the first time in months, I saw hope spark in their eyes. My mother tried one last tactic. You cannot just leave like this, Jessica. Where will you stay until the lease starts? I held her gaze. I already have that covered. A friend offered us a place to stay until the house is ready. Nancy had insisted weeks ago. She said her guest room was always open. I had prayed I would not need it, but now I was grateful. My father slammed his hand on the table. This is ridiculous. After all our sacrifices, you throw it in our faces. I shook my head. Sacrifices. I paid for my kids' expenses. I bought the groceries. I cooked and cleaned. Meanwhile, Brian and Kelly have been living here for free without lifting a finger. Tell me again who has been sacrificing. That shut him up. For once, Brian had nothing clever to say. I turned to my kids. Are you ready? They both nodded, holding their bags tight. Chloe's clarinet case dangled from her shoulder. Liam clutched his sketchbook and his dragon. We walked out the front door together. I could feel their eyes burning into my back, but I did not turn around, because I knew if I looked back, I might lose my resolve. As I buckled my kids into the car, Chloe asked softly, Mom, are we really free now? I swallowed the lump in my throat. Not yet, but soon. And what happened the very next day, when I went back to that house to collect our things, was even uglier than the night we left. The next morning, I drove back to my parents' house. Nancy had offered to watch the kids, but I refused. I wanted Liam and Chloe to see that we were in this together. When we pulled into the driveway, my father was already standing by the door with his arms crossed. His face was hard. But when he saw the twins, it softened just a little. Come to apologize for your tantrum, he asked. I shook my head. No, we came to get our things. His jaw tightened. My mother was in the living room, her eyes red like she had been crying all night. Jessica, how could you do this to us? She whispered. I am not doing anything to you, I said quietly. I am doing something for my children. Liam and Chloe ran upstairs with their bags. I stayed downstairs, facing my parents. You gave us everything. My mother insisted. A roof, support after your divorce, and this is how you repay us. I wanted to laugh at the word support. Yes, you gave us a place, and I worked double shifts to cover groceries, bills, even medicine for Liam's asthma. Meanwhile, Brian and Kelly lived here for free. Do you really think that was fair? Her lips trembled, but she said nothing. When Liam came back down with a suitcase, my father snapped, Where are you even going, Jessica? How can you possibly afford rent on your nurse salary? That was the moment I realized. They had no idea what I actually earned. They just assumed I was broke because it fit the story they told themselves. I looked my father straight in the eye. I make $65,000 a year. I have excellent credit. I have been saving for almost 2 years. I am more than capable of providing for my kids. For once, he looked speechless. Then he muttered, The rental market is impossible. You will be back. I smiled sadly. No, Dad, I will not. Upstairs, Chloe called down. Mom, should I pack the jewelry box Dad gave me? Yes, honey, bring it. My mother flinched at that. Maybe it reminded her that my ex-husband, the man she always blamed, had shown my daughter more respect than she had. We carried bag after bag down the stairs. Brian and Kelly were nowhere to be seen. Cowards, I thought. When everything was loaded in the car, I took one last look around the house. The same house where I had grown up. The same house where I had once felt safe. Now it was just walls and memories. As I turned to leave, my father made one last attempt. "You are making a mistake, Jessica. You are letting pride ruin your children's future." I stopped at the door. "No, Dad. For the first time, I am putting my children's future ahead of your pride." Liam and Chloe walked out behind me, their faces uncertain but determined. And in that moment, I knew there was no going back. But what I did not know yet was that leaving that house was only the first battle. The real fight was still ahead of me. That night, we stayed at Nancy's place. She had set up an air mattress for Liam and Chloe, right next to her guest bed where I slept. She even bought ice cream and picked out a movie for the kids, for the first time in months. I saw them laugh without looking over their shoulders. I sat in the dark after they fell asleep, listening to their steady breathing. My heart was heavy, but for once it was not with despair. It was with relief. We were finally out. The next morning, I called in a personal day. I wanted to give the kids time to process. We went to the park, had breakfast together, and just talked. Liam asked, "Mom, are Grandma and Grandpa going to hate us now?" I swallowed. "No, honey. They might be upset, but that does not mean they stop loving you. The problem is how they showed it, and that is why we had to leave." Chloe leaned on my shoulder. "I feel like I can breathe here." Her words broke me a little, but they also reminded me why I was doing all of this. The next few days were busy. Between double shifts, school drop-offs, and paperwork, I barely had time to think. But every time I looked at the calendar, I felt that spark of hope. Our move-in date was getting closer. Nancy cheered me on, reminding me I was stronger than I believed. By the end of the week, we got the keys. The house was small, but perfect. 3 bedrooms, a cozy kitchen with sunlight spilling through the window, and best of all, a backyard where the kids could finally play without being told to stay quiet. When we unlocked the door for the first time, Chloe ran to claim her room. Liam dropped his backpack in the corner of his and started sketching the window view. I stood in the middle of the empty living room and just breathed. This was ours. The next few days were chaos. Friends from the hospital came to help move furniture. Nancy brought pizza and soda, turning moving day into a celebration. By evening, the beds were set up. The kitchen had pots and pans, and the fridge was stocked. The kids slept in their own rooms for the first time in almost 2 years. That night, I sat alone on the couch surrounded by boxes. I let myself cry. But this time it was not from sadness. It was from pride. I had done it. We had done it. But just when I thought we were finally free, my phone buzzed. It was my mother. First came the angry texts, then the guilt trips, and finally, a message that made my stomach twist. "We are coming over. We need to talk." I had no idea what to expect when my parents showed up at my front door the very next morning. The next morning, just as I came back from dropping the kids at school, I saw them. My parents were standing on my new porch, 2 travel mugs of coffee in their hands like this was just a casual visit. My stomach knotted, but I opened the door. "Jessica, we need to talk," my father said firmly. I stepped aside. They walked in, their eyes sweeping across the small but cozy living room. My mother's first words were, "It is smaller than I expected." I took a breath. "It is perfect for the 3 of us." My father sat down without asking. "This has gone on long enough. You need to come home. The children need their grandparents, their uncle, their cousin." I stayed standing. "What they need is respect. What they need is a safe space where they are not treated like second-class family members. My mother looked offended. We have always loved them, Jessica. I almost laughed. Love is not just a word, Mom. Love is how you treat people. It is the choices you make every single day. And the choices you made hurt them. For once, she had no immediate response. My father jumped in. We thought we were helping Stephen and Kelly through a rough patch. That is all. At our expense. I cut in. At my kids' expense. You put Ethan in the best room in the house and shoved my children into a moldy basement. Do you even hear yourselves? Silence. Finally. My mother's shoulders slumped. We did not realize how it looked. We thought the kids could handle it better than a baby. I shook my head. That excuse does not make it less painful. It just proves you never really saw them. You only saw Stephen's family. Her eyes brimmed with tears. I never wanted to hurt them, she whispered. I believed her. But intention did not erase the damage. We sat in silence for a moment. The ticking clock on the wall was the only sound. Then my father muttered, "Maybe we were too harsh." It was the closest thing to an apology I had ever heard from him. And even that sounded like it hurt his pride. I am not saying you cannot be in our lives, I said carefully, but things have to change. Boundaries have to be respected. If you cannot do that, then you will see less of us. They stayed for nearly an hour, trying guilt, trying reason, even trying to reminisce about old family memories. But the truth hung between us. They had crossed a line, and no amount of nostalgia could erase it. As they left, my mother touched my hand. Will you let us come for Sunday dinner? Just to try. I hesitated. Then I nodded. One dinner, but on our terms. She nodded quickly, like she had just won something. But deep down, I knew the power balance had shifted. For the first time in my life, I was the one setting the rules. But that Sunday dinner would reveal even more cracks in the family, ones I had never noticed before. Sunday came faster than I expected. All week, my stomach twisted at the thought of it. I cooked a simple dinner, spaghetti and salad, nothing fancy. I wanted the focus to be on us, not on impressing anyone. Liam set the table while Chloe played soft music on her clarinet. They were nervous too, though they tried to hide it. When the doorbell rang, I took a deep breath. My parents walked in, followed closely by Brian and Kelly. Of course they brought Mason. I had not invited my brother's family, but apparently the message had been lost. The atmosphere was stiff from the very beginning. We sat down to eat. I asked Liam about his art project. He lit up, explaining how he had been chosen to represent his school. My mother nodded politely, but within seconds she turned to Mason. Did you hear that he is already trying to walk? She gushed. Just like Brian was at his age. I saw Liam's shoulders sink. Chloe kicked me under the table, silently asking me to say something. I cleared my throat. Mom, I would appreciate it if we could celebrate all the kids tonight. This is a big deal for Liam. The room went quiet. My father shifted uncomfortably. Kelly smirked like I was overreacting. Brian reached for the bread. Come on, Jess. Mason is a baby. Babies are exciting. Liam will be fine. I clenched my fork. Liam is not fine. He notices every single time you all dismiss him. And so does Chloe. My son looked at me with wide eyes, surprised I was actually saying it out loud. My father tried to laugh it off. You always did like to dramatize things, Jessica. That was it. I set my fork down. This is exactly why I left. You minimize everything. You act like my kids should just accept being treated as less than. That ends tonight. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Kelly rolled her eyes. You are making it impossible to be around you. Honestly, I do not know how you expect us to babysit or help when you act like this. I laughed. I never asked you to babysit. I never asked for your help. What I asked for was basic respect. For once, Brian had no comeback. He stared at his plate like a scolded child. The rest of dinner was painfully quiet. When it ended, my parents left with stiff hugs, Brian and Kelly stormed out without a word. Liam and Chloe helped me clear the table. As we loaded the dishwasher, Chloe whispered, "Mom, you stood up for us. You really did." Her eyes were shining, and for the first time in a long time, I saw pride in her face. That night, as I tucked them in, I realized something. This was not just about leaving my parents' house. It was about breaking free from years of being the overlooked one. It was about showing my kids they never had to accept being treated like they were less. And maybe, just maybe, it was about finally finding my own voice too. But the real turning point came months later, when my parents finally admitted something I had been waiting my whole life to hear. Months passed after that tense Sunday dinner. Life in our new house began to settle into something beautiful. Liam joined an after-school art program. His teacher said he had a gift, and I saw the old spark return to his eyes. Chloe thrived in her music lessons, filling the house with the sound of her clarinet, never once told to be quiet. I worked hard, but with a new schedule and a promotion at the hospital, I was able to be home for dinner most nights. For the first time in years, we were not just surviving, we were living. Then, one afternoon, my parents came by. Just the two of them. They sat at my kitchen table, hands folded, looking older than I remembered. My father cleared his throat. "We have been thinking a lot, Jessica, about what happened, about what we said." He looked at me straight in the eye. "I know we were unfair, to you, to Liam and Chloe. I cannot change the past, but I want to do better." For a moment, I could not speak. It was not a perfect apology, but it was the closest thing I had ever heard from him. And in that moment, I realized something. Sometimes people change, not because you beg them to, but because you finally draw a line. That line forces them to see the damage they caused. I accepted his words, not because everything was suddenly fixed, but because I knew boundaries had finally been set. And this time, those boundaries belonged to me. The months that followed were not perfect, but they were healthier. Sunday dinners became a choice, not an obligation. The favoritism was no longer ignored, and slowly, a new kind of respect started to grow. But the biggest change was not in them. It was in me. I learned that love without respect is not love at all. I learned that protecting my children sometimes meant walking away from people who claimed to care. And I learned that starting over, even when it is terrifying, can lead to the freedom you did not know you needed. As I tucked Liam and Chloe into bed one night, Chloe said softly, "Mom, I like our house. It feels like we can finally breathe." That was all I needed to hear. Because at the end of the day, I did not leave my parents' house just to prove a point. I left to give my kids a chance to grow up knowing they mattered, and that was worth everything. So let me ask you, what would you have done in my place? Would you have stayed to keep the peace, or would you have walked away like I did? Have you ever had to draw a line with family, even when it broke your heart? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And if this story spoke to you, please give it a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss more stories like this one. Because sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is pack your bags and build the life you and your children truly deserve.